kind of like poor man's version of getting things done. But really, it's going to be somewhat about getting things done. I'm going to give you some tips and tactics. Some of the stuff's going to be stuff you've already heard, and you would probably already know, and some may be new. But then the second half is what I really want to do is kind of do some workshopping together to help us accomplish something that we can leave and use. So, welcome everybody. Glad that you're here. This session, I came up with this idea of talking about how to turn your ideas into action, because I have a problem that I have to admit to everybody, and that is just can't stop coming up with ideas. It's a really good thing, but at the same time, it's also a really bad thing. It's a double-edged sword. I really kind of think that there's two pieces of coming up with that. There's two pieces of a finished work, and that's the idea, and then the implementation of the idea. So there are really kind of two people out there. There are the people who are really good at coming up with ideas, and then there are other people who are really good at implementing and taking action on ideas. How many of you guys would say that you're really good at coming up with ideas? And how many of you would say that you're really good at carrying out ideas or implementing things? And then the rest of you pretty much not good at anything, right? There's that kind of person too, right? You want to see here?
Yeah.
We need a couple more chairs.
Oh, so you don't do that, right?
You can take Cece's chair, yeah, too. So, we got some action guys, some idea guys, and some nobody. Well, the cool thing about the good news is, although I have a problem when I come up with a lot of ideas, I'm actually really good at implementing too. So I have like the best of both worlds, which gives me, I think, a unique perspective on this topic and why I really wanted to talk about it. And just to kind of put it in perspective, the reason why I say that it's kind of a blessing and a curse that I come up with lots of ideas is because when you come up with lots of ideas and you can't stop it, you're constantly coming up with ideas. And then the problem is, because I'm a good action taker and implementer, I have a problem because every time I come up with an idea, I actually want to do something about it, and then it creates a time problem because you can only do so much stuff. And I mentioned in the meeting yesterday the book Essentialism, and we've talked about the one thing, and so you've got to try to boil everything down to one thing. But if you have 9 million ideas and you want to take action on them and you only can do one thing, then you create this bottleneck, like this. You have to limit yourself, which for someone who comes up with a lot of ideas is very frustrating. And I think that the ultimate problem manifests because the joy that it's almost like I get a high when I can come up with an idea and implement the idea, and the idea comes to fruition. That's why I do everything that I do, because it's fun to come up with something and then see that thing turn into something. And it's not fun to have an idea and then see it go nowhere, because it feels like a waste. Excuse me. And so the curse is that every time I come up with an idea, I have to do something with it, and that really causes me to turn every damn idea into some kind of scheme, whether that be a money scheme or a business idea or I turn everything into something that can be as big as it can be, instead of leaving it either an idea that doesn't need to be done anything with, or making it into something, hey, we did something with the idea, but it's not really that tremendous. Like, I have a desire to take it to its limit, and so you have to rein that in. Otherwise, there's too much to do. This is a part of being a good action taker and an idea person, or both, is to really know yourself. And I talk about this a lot, personality. I do a lot of personality testing and thinking about my strengths and my weaknesses and using my strengths to my advantage. I mean, you've seen that motif in a lot of the stuff I talk about in the work that I do. And I wanted to give you guys a resource. If you haven't used this, it's really great. This is a book called StrengthsFinder 2.0. Has anyone used this book? Read this book? I really recommend. There's actually two books that go hand in hand. One is called Discover Your Strengths Now by Marcus Buckingham. It's really the explanation of this book. And then this book, StrengthsFinder 2.0 by Tom Rath, is the condensed version, okay? And so what Discover Your Strengths Now is all about is, the concept is that people are always really good at, and the universe is really good at picking out people's weaknesses and labeling their weaknesses. And then we're really programmed and attuned to finding what our weaknesses are and trying to bolster those weaknesses to kind of fill in the gaps. Well, what StrengthsFinder and Discover Your Strengths talks about is that there's really no nomenclature for our strengths. There's only nomenclature for our weaknesses. So you're deficient at problem solving, and you're not good at something else, and so you probably should work on that area. But what are you really good at? What are the things that you're strong in? And how can you take that information and do something with it rather than looking at what you're bad at and focusing on trying to improve it? So this guy Clifton, along with Marcus in the first book, Clifton did this study and analyzed all these people that worked at these companies and then created a test and a list of common strength attributes of people. And so, like I said, the first book kind of goes through all that philosophy and that theory, and then this book is a better version of the test, the assessment, and then basically outlines all of the different potential strengths and tells you which ones, the test tells you which ones you have, and then you can go back and read about the ones that you have. There are, let's see here, 34 different strength categories that he lists in here. And then through the assessment that you take online, which you get as part of buying the book, and I think the book's like $19 or something, it gives you a code and you can go online and take a test. It gives you what your top 5 are. And then you get little stickers in the book, and you put the stickers here on the front cover to remind yourself what your top strengths are, and then it goes through and you can go in here and look them up and read about it, and it gives you tips on how to use that strength to your advantage and how to because one of the things is you might have aptitude in a certain strength area, but you may not have worked on that strength and refined it and honed it to be really valuable because you never knew to. But the book gives you the nomenclature to say, oh, this is my strength, and then it gives you the ideas on how to take that strength to and refine it and use it to your advantage, which there's no real information on that anywhere else. And that's why I really like these two books. And what we do, we take our leadership team and we make them do this. We've actually gone away from it recently because we've used other assessments, but I still go back to this one over and over and over again because it's the only one of its kind. Now, my top strengths here, as identified by StrengthsFinder, are focus, activator, strategic, maximizer, and achiever. And I'm going to go over what those are real quick, just to kind of give you an idea, because some of them are self-explanatory, but others aren't. And there's some in here when you look at them, you go, huh? What is that? So I'll just read through some of these. Adaptability, analytical, arranger, belief, command, communication, competition, correctiveness, consistency, context, deliberative, developer, discipline, empathy, focus, futurist, harmony, ideation, includer, individualization, input, learner, maximizer, positivity, realtor, responsibility, restorative, self-assurance, significance, strategic, and woo, which is wins over others. And so those are all the potentials. So and it does rank them too. It does rank your top 5 in order of, most prevalent to least prevalent. So achiever is somebody who has a constant need for achievement. And this is the thing that explains somebody with high drive. I think that was pretty self-explanatory. But it really goes much deeper than that. That's just like the first sentence of the paragraph here. The activator, which is my number 2, is the activator always asks the questions, when can we start? There's another assessment tool, I think it's the Colby, which ranks some other criteria, and they call this attribute the quick start. And so I'm the type of person that when someone throws out an idea, I create a plan really quick, fast, and I'm ready to get to work like in 5 minutes. And so I can't stand sitting on things and waiting. I have to get moving. So it's a strength. There are some drawbacks to it, but there are some real strengths to it. It's actually one of the things that make Travis and I really work well together, because I am a quick start and he is an analytical. So he analyzes the heck out of everything, and it takes 900 years to get anything done. And so I basically make him do the analytics really fast so we can actually do something and get started. Yeah.
How accurate have you found that compared to the expensive test?
Well, it's different because, Myers-Briggs, which is a relatively expensive personality test, gives you information about your personality style and communication style. This is like one of the only things that says, these are your strengths. Not, here's what your personality is. So now you know what your personality type is, and you say, okay, that's cool, I'm like this. Yeah, I am like that. This says, based on the kind of action you take, the kind of your personality and your work aptitude, or the way you process, the way you think, here are the 5 things that you're really strong in, and how to use those things. And then, like I said, there's no other test that gives you that. No, I haven't seen any other personality, and I've taken many of them. Gives you this specific, like, here's what you should be working on and refining and honing and spending your time focusing on these key areas, because this is going to make you a stronger person. And and this is kind of, again, the philosophy of the book is we shouldn't waste our time working on our weaknesses, because we're only going to be able to improve the things that we're weak at a very small amount, because we're not naturally good at them. But if we focus all of our effort and time on taking the things that we're really good at, and we work on making ourselves better in those key areas, we're going to be able to make bigger gains in those areas because we have natural aptitude. And then we're going to be able to have more leverage in everything we do when we know what we're strong at, and we work on making ourselves even stronger in those areas. It has a multiplicative effect on our ability to perform at a high level. But we're programmed to find out what we're weak at and try to be more well-rounded. Well, the concept here is well-rounded is worthless. What you want to be is extremely good at certain things, and spend all of your time working on those things and working in those capacities. And when you do that, you're going to make leaps and bounds, accomplishments at a much greater rate. But the universe teaches us the complete opposite approach. And so a lot of people waste all their time trying to be better at, analytics and numbers when they're not an analytics and numbers person, and it's like you drive yourself nuts. You don't do it because you don't like it. You don't like it because you're not good at it, and you don't make much progress because A, you don't work at it, B, you don't like it, and C, you aren't naturally attuned to it. So you can work really hard, and you really get very minimal results. Gus?
What was the name of the book?
It's called StrengthsFinder 2.0, and the first version, which is more about the philosophy of it, is Discover Your Strengths Now. You really have to
just do one.
You have to read both. You have to read the first one, because there's nothing to read here. This is really just the 34 personality types and their descriptions.
Shit, I just ordered one of them already. So
Well, you
what's
need
the
both.
first one? What's the first
Because,
one?
but there's a test that comes with the first one that's antiquated and sucks. Don't take the test in that one.
Okay.
You have to buy this one to really buy the test. When you buy this, you're buying the test.
Would the other one be called Now Discovery?
Yes, that's what it's
Okay.
What is it? First
Which is stupid to
Yeah,
put the
so-
now first.
Right, I just wanted, I bought it.
So you really need both. Read the first one and take the test in this one.
Is that? I've taken some of these.
Don't buy it used because I've heard that that you can't use the code.
Does that one give you the? Because anytime you have a positive or a strength, that strength also comes with a weakness.
Sure it
Like
does.
that strength, like one of mine is focus, and when I have focus,
Yeah, you ignore
I
everything
ignore
else.
everything else and ignore other people, and they can come talk to me, and I don't even realize they're talking to me. So I can come off as rude or obnoxious to them or whatever. Well, does that one lay out your weakness too?
It
This
does.
is your strength, and
It
where
does
you
tell
have
the
the strength.
ramifications of the strength. Which has both positive and
It's a
negative,
big
but it
part
tells
of
you
it.
how to leverage the positive part of the strength.
Yeah.
And basically, the concept is don't worry about the negative part, but don't put yourself in positions where you have to use the negative side of the strength, right? If you're so focused that you don't have a personality, then don't put yourself in situations where you have to use your personality because it's not a strength. Put yourself in a place where you use more focus. Do the right jobs.
How do you, I don't know, how do you get people that work with your management, how do you encourage them to take the time to read? Because reading's powerful. And a lot of people, managers that you want to say, here, read this, and they just don't read it. It's challenging to get people to read or take 30 minutes or an hour a day to read. How do you do that?
It's the bane of existence, in my opinion, that people don't read books because I write books and I create books and I read a lot of books. So
Even short books.
Even short books.
That are good, that are, maybe they take an hour or two to read and I know how much it means to me to be able to read a short book or a book. The books you guys send, they're not long reads, but trying to encourage people to take time.
yeah, so I'll give you some ideas. Is this important to everybody in the room?
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's kind of off topic, so. But I like the topic, so if everybody else likes it, I'll talk about it. And so the answer is there's no real answer, but I'll tell you what we do, what we attempt to do. So first thing is you just have to have a culture of encouragement on the topic. So we, obviously, guys sitting in this room and in the main room with us, we talk about reading books a lot. We talk about the books we've read a lot. We talk about ideas that we've gotten from books a lot. And not only do we talk about the ideas we've gotten from books, we always try to attribute the ideas back to where the source we got them from, which generally is a book. And I think that makes an impact when you do it on a regular basis, because people start to go, man, person reads a lot of books. He's got a lot of ideas. Seems really sharp. So therefore, some people make the connection that reading books delivers that outcome, which is, and for some people they want the outcome, they decide they want the outcome so they see the path, right? The other way to do it, another thing that we do is we just make it a culture of encouragement of reading, period. So every employee that gets hired at Gravitational Marketing gets a Kindle. We used to do it after 90 days. I think now we do it. We're going to start doing it. If we're not doing it already on day one. Which makes an impact. Like, hey, you're here, whether here for a day or for a week or for 20 years, you're getting Kindle because we put a value on reading and education in general. So, I mean, I think people should read, but I really want them to seek self-improvement, whether that be in the form of reading or other things. I'm okay with that, but self-improvement is important. We buy all of our employees Kindle credits every month. If you want a Kindle credit, you can have a Kindle credit, and then if you read a book and you deliver either an oral presentation about the book or a written presentation about the book or write-up about the book on our company Google group, you can be eligible for another credit. So I will pay you to read, basically. Huh?
How often does that happen? How many months?
Not as often as I would hope. I wish that we were buying everybody in the company a credit every single month.
And do you get a couple people a month that do it?
Yeah, I would say there's probably a couple people.
Yeah.
It's far less than you would hope.
Yeah.
But we also offer other forms of self-improvement in the company. We offer an education budget for every employee that goes beyond the Kindle credits. They can take classes. They can go to seminars, whether they be online classes or physical classes. You know, Fred Pryor has a bunch of employee work-related courses that people can take. So we'll send people to those if they choose, or like I said, if they're specialists, then there's online courses or college courses or whatever. We work with them in those areas. Have books around is really important. If you want to encourage reading, have books around. Have books in your office. Have books available. Anytime someone comes to my office, really ask questions or talk to us, oftentimes they'll leave with a book. Because I'll talk to them and I'll say, oh, you know what? Have you read blah, blah, blah? The answer is no. So, yeah, look, pull it off the shelf and hand it out. Books that I hand out a lot, like books that I recommend, Psycho-Cybernetics, Essentialism, Think and Grow Rich. I've got 20 copies in a box. Because I'm generally their go-to. And the reason they're the go-to is because they're so foundational. If you haven't gotten those foundations, then more than likely you're not going to read the rest of the stuff. Yeah.
I'm a person that doesn't really like to read, and I recently started reading. And I would say the one thing that got me to start reading is the intent to want to grow as a person. So to me, if you can get somebody to realize the importance of reading and what it's going to do to them, and get them to desire to grow as a person, like getting someone to read like when you talk to somebody that doesn't want to read about reading, they're like, whatever, I'm not reading. Yeah, I'm not a reader, I don't read.
Right.
That's where I was for years. But what got me to read is...
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to encourage somebody to take
grow
the
as a
step,
person.
you have to have a conversation about what they actually want, and then link that outcome to the book. So, what are you trying to accomplish in your life? What would you hope to happen? What changes would you like to have? This is a one-on-one personal management kind of thing. And then say, hey, did you know that if you were to read this book and that book, I think it would really help and get you faster to your goal. I didn't read anything. I was a good student. And I have some kind of weird, as we talked about in the Sherlock Holmes, I have a memory for the small trifles. I didn't have to study in school really that hard. Certain subjects I did, but I didn't study that much, and I didn't do that well in them, so I didn't really focus on those things. But the ones that I had certain natural aptitudes for things that I didn't study, so I didn't read books. I never read books. Until I was out of college, the only two books I think I've ever read were Cricket in Times Square when I was in elementary school, and the novel for Dick Tracy, the book of the movie when it came out in the 80s. I didn't read. Okay, I didn't like it. I didn't see the value. I didn't have the time. I had too many video games to play. Didn't have time to read any books. I think part of it I have some weird eye issues, muscular imbalance of my eyes. So for a long time, when I would read, I didn't get glasses until I was in 3rd grade. So growing up early development and reading, when you're learning to read, I always struggled with it because I would skip lines when I would read and nobody understood why. Like, it was very difficult because it didn't make any sense. Like I'd read a line and then go 2 lines below and start reading there, and to me it seemed like the next line, but it wasn't. And then when I got glasses in 3rd grade, that helped out. But I always had problems with it, and so I think that over time just made me not want to read. It was not enjoyable. It was not easy. I didn't get it. It wasn't comfortable, and so I just said, I don't read. And I don't need to read because I can accomplish what I want to accomplish without reading any books. And it was really Travis that got me into reading when we were working at the agency and we had to go on a plane, because the other thing I don't like to do is fly. So I don't like to read and I don't like to fly, and really the only thing to do when you're flying is read. So, well, not even watch movies, but so he said, I hate flying and then whatever. He's like, well, you read on the plane? I'm like, no, I really don't read anything. And he said, well, you should read this book. I just read this book and it's really good. I'll give it a shot. So we got on the plane, and it was just a fiction book. It was called Code to Zero by Ken Follett. It's kind of like a Jason Bourne kind of novel. And I read the book on the plane, and it was awesome. And I said, wow, I cannot believe what I've been missing all this time with fiction. You know, it was just so vivid in my mind when I read the book. And then I started reading. I had always dabbled in some, like I would, when I go to a bookstore, I would go to the personal development aisle because I was always interested in personal development, but I couldn't bring myself to read anything, so I just kind of looked around a lot. So then I went to personal development aisle, and I did do some audio course stuff back then. Brian Tracy and that kind of stuff. Nightingale Conan. So then I started reading some self-help books, and it just kind of opened up a whole new world when I could find what I could discover in books. So getting back to the topic at hand, I guess. You know, again, more one-on-one finding out what they want, so you can link it to reading as an outcome, talking about it, giving people books. We, for a while, were reading lockstep books in our company. Like we would say, okay, he gave everybody a copy of a single book and said, I want you guys to read chapter 1 this week, and then next week we're going to talk about it, and read chapter 2 the next week, and next week we're going to talk about it. We moved on from that and went to something different, but that works too. I mean, there's other creative approaches, but at the end of the day, I mean, you can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink.
The books you guys send us, some of them are really good, and they could really, employees could get a lot out of reading them also, but most of them just don't. I wish I could find them.
And then audio, I mean, sometimes it helps to introduce them to Audible and audio if they drive, because they don't have to actually take the step of reading to realize that there's a lot of value there. They can listen. They go, oh man, that was pretty good, and I got something from that. Oh man, well you can listen. You don't have to read. Helps.
We used that Read It For Me for a while, which is an online platform. It's like these 15-minute videos of condensed versions of these books, and it was really good. The only thing is that, it had to be totally driven by me, and I got exhausted from doing it, so we stopped. But
Right.
you have somebody that can do it for you. And right now, we're trying to kick off a new customer service enhancement project, so we're reading a couple specific books wrapped around that. We're reading them on staff. We've got to sign out chapters. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
One of the things we did, we found out that just getting the first page or two
Read
because it's so
helps.
intimidating to them. So like if I give a book out to the management team, I'll say to them like, hey, let me know when you get to page 17, okay? And then on page 19, I'll write, let me know when you got to here. And on page 56, let me know when you got to here, and I'll write it down. And so I'll put it on my Google Calendar. Like I'll put Garrett, page 56 today. And I'll send them an email and say, hey man, have you read page 56 yet? And they'll look at page 56, and it's like, let me know. They'll flip there, and they'll say, let me know when you get here. And so like, that was my way of like prodding them just to get going. And I think we had 14 managers in the group that was reading books. And the people who I didn't think would read did, and the people that I knew that would didn't. But it's about a 50% success ratio. But that's a huge success ratio.
Yeah, and
You know what I'm
reading.
saying?
And with our leadership team, it's a bit different. We kind of expect our leadership team to read. and we have books that we read, that we work out of, that we go, hey, we're going to be using this book on our leadership team, so I need everybody to read it, and I pass it out, and I really expect everybody to read it. And there's kind of a social accountability that goes with it, because when, you got a leadership team and there's 8 people on it, and 6 of them have read it, the other ones haven't, they start to feel the pressure. Like, I either need to read this, or maybe I don't need to be here. And
Senior management gets a book when they come to work for us, a stack of books this big, in the order that they need to read them in, and how long they need to have it read in. So everybody that's on the executive team, like Jim's saying, is on the same page with the books that I've read and everybody else has read, so they get up to speed faster.
yeah,
But we have, I mean, it's a culture, so when we get those books, you run through those books, and if you're sitting around with us in the management meeting, you don't know what's in those books,
You can't keep up.
yeah, you can't keep up. I mean,
you're talking a language that they don't even get, because
Right.
they're not in the know.
And that culture's always there. We're always referencing books and everything. So those people that aren't in it, they want to be, with the inner circle, so they want to read those books, and that gets them started. And once you get somebody started, then, that hunger comes and you read.
But, outside the leadership team, it's really hard. It's a different animal.
And the reason I brought this up is a lot of the books that you guys send us, there's a lot of good things for people that work in your company to apply, not only to their life, but to their jobs.
Well, and
Hoping that they will
sometimes what you need